On this episode of Carnage, we have just come back from Summernats and we got some stuff to fix, but we are getting this thing ready to race. Okay, so we have just come back from Summernats and we had a blast, and now it's raining, beautiful Melbourne weather, and we have a bucket to collect the drops. But anyway, forget all that. The Lexcen did awesomely. I mean, we had such a great time. The Lexcen did pretty much everything that was asked of it, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with the result. The only thing it kind of failed on was the skid row action. It did do a burnout though. We did get a skid out of it, but we didn't get the skid that we wanted. And of course, we did some testing in front of Repco and blew that trans line. And after I blew the trans line, I just didn't have that kind of confidence that the repair would hold. So we just pulled the pin on that whole skid row idea after that. But now we're gonna fix the trans line. So I need to point this out, that the trans lines we had in the car came from the Trovo. They were 4 years old. They were very dirty and I thought they'd be fine. They are the only non-ProFlow lines and fittings in the car, and yeah, I should have taken the time to actually make some nice Teflon lines. We're gonna do that now, but yeah, I thought I should point out that this is not a ProFlow problem, you know. This is just me reusing old stuff that probably should have been replaced in the first place. And of course, Scotty's fuck up comes back to bite us. It's Carnage. What else do you expect? But like I said, we had a blast at Summernats. It was fantastic. We cruised it. We made awesome power on the dyno. I'm still buzzing about its dyno figure and how it did so well. People are like, how is it so much higher? Well, I moved the air temp sensor, so that may have had some play into that as well. The air is different up there in Canberra. It should, being a higher elevation, it should be less, but traditionally when we take cars from home and take them up there, they make more power. It happened with the Trovo, it happened with the Mazda, now it's happened with the Lexcen. It's consistent, I've got to say that. So I want to take it racing. So I want to fix the trans lines. I want to hook up some stuff on the Haltech Dash, like the blinkers, the headlights, the fuel tank sensor. Definitely want to hook that up, because I know now that we've got it back, I drove it to the servo yesterday. I put 40 litres of E85 in it. So all that stuff from like Thursday afternoon when we filled up and we put 22 litres in it, we filled it up, and then I drove all over Canberra, did heaps of cruising, did all that dyno stuff, you know, driving out to Repco multiple times. So all that stuff used about 40 litres of fuel. So that's not too bad, not too bad at all. And then I drove it around a lot yesterday in the 30-degree heat. It didn't quite like that so much. It did get warm, but not as bad as it did prior to Summernats. So, you know, again, that's something we're going to have to deal with. I think we need to put a shroud on the back of the radiator with this thermofan, and that will help our cooling system. So, we've got some work to do. We need to move our bucket, put the Lexcen through, up on the hoist, remove the bar. We're going to have to remove the intercool to get it to the trans cooler so we can do the lines. Yeah, there's some work to do, so let's get started. So the car still needs some cold start tuning, so I need to get it above 40 degrees coolant temp, because if I take my foot off the pedal right now, it dies. So, yeah. And it floods a little bit, so we'll get Zane onto that. considering a trans line dropped its guts under here, it's actually reasonably clean. I did give it a bit of a wipe over. You can see where I've done the repair, some multiple hose clamps there and a barb fitting. Yeah, it basically, you know, because we were on the 2-step at the time and trying to set up anti-lag, and we'd like doing it hit after hit. It all built up sort of temperature and pressure, and it just pumped the line straight out of the fitting. And it's this cloth covered braid, which I just don't think it's quite up to the task. So yeah, I won't be using that style of line again for a trans hose. So just going to use Teflon lines. Teflon lines have proven to be quite good on this car. All the Proflow stuff we've used has been flawless, like nothing leaks, and we've used a lot of stuff on this car. Like this car, you know, it has a heap of Proflow stuff, and look at it, it's making great horsepower. It's got Proflow pumps, it's got Proflow lines, Proflow fittings, RTS shifter, Proflow intercooler, all this stuff that everyone said, oh, why are you putting this stuff in the car? Well, it all works, and it's all reasonably priced, you know, so why wouldn't I use it? And it's great quality. So, all right, let's get these lines out, get some new stuff in there. And new, and new, new, and you. Okay, 1 bar. So in my wisdom, I have buried the transcooler in between the intercooler and the radiator, and it means I can't get at the lines of fittings back there. So I'm going to pull the intercooler out, which is basically the 2 boost clamps and then 4 bolts, which makes it pretty easy. So yeah, we'll do that, and that will help us get to what's behind. Well, I didn't really think about it at the time when we put this together that the transmission cooler was kind of on the small size. It's kind of like, you know, that big. We had it in the Trolvo for years, and it seemed to be fine for that, but the Trolvo was pretty much a track only car, where this is a street car, so we need something a bit bigger in there to give it more cooling. Just, you know, heat and transmissions are mortal enemies, so the cooler you can keep your transmission, the better. So therefore, I think we're going to have to put a bigger transcooler, and funny enough, I've raided the Utes stash of parts, and here's a much bigger transcooler, so we'll get that in there. It even has 3/8 AN fittings on there, like Dash 6 AN fittings, and yeah, so that will cool it down much more, and it'll fit in the space that we have there. So let's get this in there, make up some new lines, and it will all be much betterer. Ding, ding. Yeah, I mean, it's okay size, but yeah, marginal for what we were asking it to do. Not on the shirt. Ah. Whoops. Gee. Transmission fluid. Ah. Okay, let's have a look. So we've got some fittings there. Oh, nice size. Oh, look at that. It is much bigger. Look at that. Dash 6 AN. It's going to be awesome. All right, well, I guess we stick this into the car and then we make the lines to suit. So if you're wondering why we drilled extra holes, it's because there's no way to mount this thing. You're going to have to go plastic rods through under the tube, and the hole was kind of in line with the tube, so we had to drill holes down lower so we could go under the tube. That was what that was all about. All right, so now let us see. Okay, above there, oops, above there, drippy pen, create a hole, and then through that side. All right. Yeah, that's going to be too sharp, so because of the bend radius, you might have to come straight off that one. So just checking our bend radius there. I think we'll be fine. And then if we go off that one, again, should be fine. Alrighty, let's do a right angle on that. That's one. So the critical thing with this Teflon line is not to kink it. Once you kinked it, it's done. It's done forever, it's done for good. So yeah, just got to be careful not to kink it. But yeah, that should be fine. Oh. Now I know I've said this before, but I'll say it again. When you're doing a transmission cooler, put your hot line, so the fluid coming out of the transmission, into the lower fitting on your transmission cooler, push it up through the cooler, and then your cooler transmission fluid should return back to your box. On a Turbo 400, the in is at the top of the box, the out is at the lower. So in this case, it'll be the lower fitting to the lower fitting, the upper fitting to the upper fitting. Pretty simple. And make sure that that's going to be a nice gentle curve, which looks like it will be. It's been a while. Hassan, chop! So we'll cable tie them together just so we've got the length right, which is about there. So that'll follow the path of that one, across to there, and onto there, and we have enough length, which is awesome. Hassan, chop! I feel like you'd be disappointed if I didn't say that. So the good thing and the bad thing about AN fittings, they're good that they are a positive thing when you screw them on, so they're either right or they're wrong. But sometimes getting the angle right, especially up in a dark spot, can be a little bit difficult. It's right, it's just, you know, there's a little bit of tension on the lead, so it's... So they could be all tied together. All nicely, very good. Job done. Just tighten them up. If you're wondering why I'm not cutting them flush, it's because if you cut them flush, they pull through. Right, so we've got everything tightened up, cable tied in place, tighten the fittings at either end. I'm very happy with how it's all looking. It looks awesome. So we'll do a test fire up soon, but not today. I'm going to get the cooler back in tomorrow morning, get the bar back on, all that sort of stuff, and then move on to the Haltech Dash and do the wiring there that I want to do, and then we can fire it all up, like I said, tomorrow. Let's go home. Right, so we've got our front bumper back on. Let's move to the inside and do our dash. So I've got a bit of a head start on the dash business. We did have the digital dash in there before in this 3D printed insert, and it's great, it works well. It's hooked up via the AMP connector to a CAN bus which runs the ECU, so you get all your ECU information on the dash. What you don't get is blinkers, high beam, fuel level, which is the super important one, and that's why I want to hook up some stuff to the dash. So it means we're going to have to use a couple of these additional pins here for our, hold it that way up, for our dash. So obviously, yeah, the first 4 positions on the plug are taken up by the CAN bus, and then we're going to have to plug in some stuff, and I've already got a bit of a head start on that. And the old cluster has helped us because quite helpfully, it has the listing of all the information of what goes to which pin on the actual dash itself. How good's that? So you can find stuff like where is the left blinker, where is the right blinker, where is the high beam. All very simple, didn't have to worry about wiring diagrams or anything. So I've picked out 8 different coloured wires. I've already terminated them with the spare pins in the dash box, the digital dash box. Haltech always gives you some spare pins to do this sort of stuff with. So we're going to plug them into our AMP connector. That's what it's called, an AMP connector. And we'll plug them in, heat shrink it down, and then the other end we will connect up under the dash. So let's work out what pins we have to pull, because there's little plugs in there that we have to pull out. 17 out. And that's 22. I think we're done. Yep, clips in, nice, good. Alrighty, heat shrink that on, and then we can do the other end. So now that we've got our little flying lead, the fun part, I'm going to use these little splicers. So strip off a piece of wire under the dash, and strip off a piece of, well, cut this down, strip off a piece off the end, and then splice the two wires together. Actually, I might need to use the next size up, which is that size. Yeah, and splice the two wires together so we get a nice solid connection, and not using Scotch locks like we did on the VN, which made everyone really happy. So we've got connector 1, 2 and 3, and on connector 1 we've got 3 things to connect. The first being the fuel, which is on pin 5, and we're using the yellow wire, and number 5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cross like that, or is it left or right? No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's that way. So we've run into a little snag, and that is there is no room to work here. Can't get the crimpers in there to do the splice crimps properly, which means I am going to have to use Scotch locks. I really didn't want to, but I'm going to have to. But because I've already stripped that first wire, and Scotch locks are an insulation displacement system, so they displace the insulation and get a good grip on the wire. I need to solder the first one, so let's just tin our soldering iron. Yeah, she's hot enough. Alrighty, let's see if we can connect this first wire at least, and then for the rest of them, God, I need 3 hands for this. This is going to be fun. Okay, so we have soldered our joint. I'll whack a bit of insulation tape around it if I can. And the others are going to get Scotch locks. I should explain also that we're doing it this way so it can be returned to stock if we need to. Because if I was to cut those connectors off, there's no going back ever. Because yeah, you pretty much can't buy those connectors, and you know, I have no idea how we would terminate them. So this way, if we ever want to return it to stock, we just cut away our wires, plug connectors back into a dash, and then bang, she's stock again. Anyway, continuing on. And that's one. Oh wow. Okay, it is time to do a bit of a test. Let's power up the dash. Slowly, slowly. Alright, blinkers. And if we put hazards on, that works. It's actually got the park brake light on because the freaking thing's not right, but that's alright. It's not actually on, but the light's on. So that means we've got blinkers, we've got handbrake, headlights. I've got to test, but jig the dash around to do that. And the fuel level, so it's showing 100% on the fuel level, which is not far wrong because it's full of fuel at the moment. However, it's maybe not 100%, so I might have to recalibrate that. So yeah, we are pretty close to being ready. I'll have to tip in some more trans fluid, but yeah, we're all trying to get it ready for racing tomorrow night. So that's going to be exciting. But yeah, you'll see all that on a future episode of Carnage. You know what? Let's not end it off there. Let's do something fun. Let's test the two-step. God, that sounds good. All right. Didn't expect that, did ya? See you next episode. Oh, Mr. Hart, what a mess!